Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gibson, and I'm joined today by the one and only, maybe the most handsome man in all of the UK, Seb Ostrowicz. How you doing, Seb?
I have never received that as an introduction, Josh.
That's
I
probably the first
appreciate
and
it.
last time.
It's definitely flatter. I'm the most handsome man in the room right now. And I'm in a boardroom with about 20 chairs, all of which are empty except mine. But how are you?
I'm doing well. This morning, so the topic of today's podcast for everyone who tuned in, I was scrolling through my Facebook memories as I enjoy doing. It's a highlight of my day. And you popped on this call and I said, Seb, guess what? Guess what happened today, this point in history, this day in history. And you knew exactly
I
what it
did
was.
know.
So maybe you can recount what happened for the people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously because it was you saying it, it limited it down massively. So I instantly was thinking, okay, it's probably something that we've done together. And I know I always have in my head the dates of trips that I've done. I can always remember them, like where they were and when they were. So September 1st, I flew out to California, 2019.
Yeah.
Met you there. First time we ever met in person. Spent 2 weeks there and then flew straight from there to Thailand for my first ever World Championships. So I knew that on the 4th of September 2019, which is when we're recording this, 2025, we were together probably at Cal Strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6 years ago. Yeah.
And
Wow.
one of the most important parts, I think, about recording and filming and having this like content saved up, it's like I've watched that stuff a ton. And a memory that sticks out, I think I was coming down, I want to say I was coming down an escalator, or I was walking toward you and you were seated. And I was like, oh,
At the airport?
how was getting through customs, how was getting,
Yeah.
and you have do you remember that little like story you told about that?
Oh, no. No. Was it something about, did I try and bring food through or something?
No,
Or?
I think the officer was like, hey, what are you here for? You're like, oh, I'm coming to see something, 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 Ian Wilson. And he's like, welcome to the USA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't remember exactly how it was. I think it was like, I'm here for this. And he was like, and this, and this. And then eventually I said, and I'm meeting Ian Wilson. And then obviously he just happened to arbitrarily choose that point. But he was like, sir, welcome to the USA. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. And that's for our OG weightlifting fans.
And then in reality, I didn't even see him.
Yeah, we didn't even see Ian. I think we
He
kind of
bailed.
tried to, but yeah, we didn't end up making that happen. And that was the fun thing about that trip is met Yasha for the first time, Alvin,
Yeah, Yasha Faye.
everyone at Marin Heavy Athletics, met Sean Waxman,
Max Ater.
met Max. I had a burger with him and learned
Max
that
Montana Ater. Yeah.
Oakland is a place where we were in his car and we got out and he's like, hey, grab your backpacks. It's like,
right.
Oh, okay. Now I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So learned a lot that trip. And that's kind of what I wanted to.
And then obviously Dave Spitz, Wes Kitts, like all of them. Yeah.
And I mentioned to you in a voice note, I saw Wes over the weekend. He was hosting a seminar and I went up and chatted with him a little bit. And, so it's been 6 years since that fateful day. And I remember after that, because you were talking about going to Thailand and filming at Worlds, and that was the first one you were going to film at, right?
Yeah.
So 6 years later, obviously a lot's changed. Maybe you can recount a little bit about what spurred on the interest, like that drive to make that trip happen. Because I remember you reached out and you're like, hey, would you want to do this, like be involved? And then eventually you went from flying out to the US for 2 weeks to flying to Thailand. I mean, that's just like a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy dedicated to something where like most people wouldn't be able to make that happen because they have a normal 9 to 5, a normal job, normal responsibilities. And that was, I think, the start of your weightlifting house arc from like a content standpoint.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I think because bear in mind, at that point, I'd been recording podcasts for 2.5 years, which is crazy that for 2.5 years, Weightlifting House did not go to competitions. I did not film. There was no YouTube channel. It was hours and hours a week of podcasts. At one point, we were recording 5 episodes a week. At one point, you recorded a solo show or an interview for the Weightlifting House podcast each week without me. Like, I think it was like Monday, Tuesday, me and you, Wednesday news show, Thursday just you, Friday me and a guest or something like that. Like, it was really full on. And but yeah, I think I was fortunate enough that I was basically making enough of a living, not much, but enough of a living coaching. So I was coaching a weightlifting team at a CrossFit gym in person a few times a week, but then also I'd grown a bit of an online team.
Yeah.
I was also helping with the online team, like Glenn's online team, who obviously we mentioned about this before we jumped on the call, that not only was it 6 years ago that we went to California, but 6 years minus 1 day ago that Glenn died, which is just crazy to think that it's been that long. But I was helping out with his online team as well and making, I think he and I landed, I got a 30% cut of that team, which is actually like pretty good. And I basically did the manual work. He would send me like, I mean, you probably remember, like, he would type stuff up on like something that was like not even compatible to open with like Word or any Microsoft or Apple product. You're just like, how have you even written this on a laptop? And then like somehow, like, I don't know if you've taken a picture on your phone of it and then emailed it, but like you cannot like copy and paste anything, and nothing on your laptop would even be able to open it. It was absolute carnage, and I'd do all of the coach work and finance and everything. So I had just enough money to sort of survive. But I knew, okay, Weightlifting House basically has to, I think, start going to competitions. It's the only way. And also, I just want to go. I'm desperate to go. I'm desperate to start traveling, because it was just a podcast at that point and me writing and that sort of stuff. And we had just started selling thumb tape in, I think it was May or June, or maybe even like July, basically, of that year. So like 2 or 3 months before, we'd brought out our, I guess, in a weird way, it was like our fourth product, because it was like a t-shirt and then a barbell and then the Greatest Weightlifters book and then thumb tape. Like, very strange, but I was convinced like, oh, thumb tape is going to take us to the moon. I had worked it out in my head. I was like, okay, if we get 1,000 people buying thumb tape from us every month, that's $15,000 a month. And I was like, and I was like, okay, they'll buy it every other month, so that's $7,500. There'll be costs, obviously. Like, the profit on that will be like 2,000, but that's me done. I'm good at that point. I was like, this is my goal. Obviously, it's just not quite how it works. But yeah, I think I remember deciding I need to go and do this trip, and I'll see if you want to come along, and let's do a bit of a tour, and we can talk about it on the podcast, all of the trips, and we can use it to almost like launch a YouTube channel. But it was very like, we absolutely did not have the money in the Weightlifting House. And I say it was just me at that point. I think Dan had just started helping out with like making sure I was like legal and like made sure the website was running well and making sure, like, I don't even know, just like making sure we were doing fine. But we did not have the money. So it was a real risk to like spend a few $1,000s getting out there, Airbnbs and flying to Thailand and everything. But I just kind of knew I had to. And you were also similarly at a point where you were kind of just ready to like hustle and grind to do anything to just, I mean, really just to meet these people. That's kind of what it was. It was just a crazy excitement of like, you know how people do like a religious pilgrimage to different parts of the world where their faith like originated? Like, that's how it felt. It was like, there is this one state in the USA where California Strength and Dave Spitz and Max Acer and Ian Wilson, they're all there. That's where Glenn started out. And it was just like, we need to go. It's like the mecca of weightlifting. And I don't even know what's going to happen. I mean, Weightlifting House was so nothing at that point that I remember at one point Dave Spitz suggesting that they needed a new person to film their training.
Mm-hmm.
and post on YouTube, because I used to post on YouTube twice a week. And I was like ready to just throw in
Yeah.
everything, or throw out everything and be like, all right, I'll just quit Weightlifting House. I'll just come and film and edit for you. Like, that is easily the best thing I could do. And thankfully I didn't say that, but he probably would have accepted it as well. um, but yeah, I mean, there wasn't a very good reason as to why I decided to fly out to the USA and then meet you, and then also go to Worlds. I just sort of knew that if this is going to work, we've got to start doing that. We've got to have our own content. We can't just find really cool old videos from, the 1980s and then write about them and post them and that sort of thing. Like, we've got to start generating our own stuff. I also had such respect, and obviously still do, but for Hook Grip and ATG and their videos, and I loved their videos, and like any training hall video they had, I thought was sick. And so I just, I had the cheapest $200 camera, no microphone, a couple of SD cards that didn't even really work, and then just went for it. And it did. I mean, I guess it worked. It worked enough. I mean, the content quality is so low, really, but it just didn't matter, because like through the podcast, we built up such a strong like army of like obsessed weightlifting people who just wanted like the interviews and the inside scoop, and it didn't matter if anything was in like 4K or whatever. Like, just get the shot, ask the athlete something, like get the interview. It was so rugged and raw. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I think there's so much to say there. And you mentioned how the podcast had changed across time. And I remember when we were recording the Daily Brew, and it was daily episodes. And I remember all of the interviews. Like, I mean, the interviews were insane from like a who's who standpoint. It's like Eric Helms, Mike Israetel, Jordan Fagenbaum, like literally all the barbell medicine guys. And then you have
every coach.
Botev. Yeah, you didn't like every
I did like Ilya and Lou.
Yeah, Ilya and Lou.
Rastami.
Yeah, I still can't get over the fact you literally like lived in Qatar for 2 weeks. Like, I can't believe that. And I think that's a lot of where I'm starting from when I kind of think about this, and the questions I'm going to ask is, one, shout out to those early days where Spencer Arnold introduced me to the concept of even tracking data, like tracking reps. Like, I had no clue. And that episode of the podcast it was spurred on by an article he had written about just tracking data. And I was like, holy shit, this is like revolutionary. And it took me a long time to fucking figure out what I was doing, because now, as I've learned interning under, a great coaching staff, you have to see it in practice and get exposure to it. And then you can try to do it on your own. Everything I feel like we did on our own and figured it out along the way. And I think that really stretched out how long it took. But that also made it so much less along the beaten and predictable path, that you can have those like crazy situations of didn't really have any money, didn't really know what we were doing. It's like, but we're going to Los Angeles to see Sean Waxman and just like film and eat, fucking burritos with him. And I've realized now, like, those situations, like we recorded a podcast with Tim Sukamel when we were in California, or sorry, you posted it. I remember you posting it. And I've talked to Tim a handful of times. He was on the Power and Strength Summit with me. Like, I see him at gyms. And, a lot of the people who we've met along the way, recorded podcasts with, created content with, somehow we've been reconnected in more of a professional setting. I remember Trotsky and Putsov came out to Morgantown to host like a little workshop because I knew them. And they're like, hey, we're coming through. Is there a place we can like do some work? And that's how I met them for the first time. So I realized like all that kind of unbeaten path work initially kind of set the foundation for a lot of the relationships and opportunities later. But for you, kind of doing it all on your own, not having a plan or a scheme of how to do it, like, I guess
it was rugged.
It's hard because like, how are you able to stay invested and do things that eventually turned, like the tables eventually turned to where I think now a lot of people who you would be reaching out to say like, hey, could I get work? Could I help you? now people are going to turn the tables and say, hey, Seb, can I help you? Can I be a part of
Yeah.
Weightlifting House? Can I contribute?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you work with me?
Yeah.
And so much of that was done on your own. I mean, I didn't realize Dan didn't come on so late, but I remember Dan reached out to both of us, and I wish I would have jumped to this, but it took me too long to figure out how to be confident and sure in my work, my writing. But he reached out to both of us about, hey, do you want to write a book? I remember him reaching out, and I was like, is this kind of a joke? Like,
Right.
I think it's Powerful Ideas Publishing.
Yeah.
And he reached out. He's like, do you want to write a book? It's like, I do. I don't know. I can't write a book. And
Yeah.
you did. You ended up
I
writing a
was just
fucking
like,
book, right?
Yeah.
So just talk us through that, like commitment to yourself, commitment to this brand that eventually
I
had
mean,
to like
yeah.
die and be reborn and just go through so many different stages before it can turn into what it is today.
I mean, I remember my mindset back then was just like, I was like desperate and overwhelmed and just like panicked at the idea that I had to make weightlifting work.
Mm.
Like, I just was not like a lot of other people. My obsession with weightlifting was so intense that like I found it difficult to be friends with people who couldn't just talk about weightlifting all the time, and most people can't. And like, I couldn't go to lectures, I couldn't study, I couldn't talk to my family. I mean, obviously I could, but like, all I wanted to do was talk about weightlifting. I was so obsessed. I was so bit by the bug. And this panic of like, what am I going to do when I finish university? Like, I have to go and work in a weightlifting or CrossFit gym. Like, there's absolutely nothing else I can do. And and any opportunity to just be anyone in the sport was just so. I remember like I would almost like get panicked about the idea that I might not be able to do it. And obviously I almost didn't think I would, but just it would like terrorize me. Like, I've got to do this. I've got to find a way. And so like now you like an opportunity comes along and I can think about, do I want it? Do I not want it? Back in the day, it wouldn't even be like an opportunity. It'd be like the tiniest fragment of like, I remember like at one point, like, maybe someone like Jordan Sakas, who was like a junior Welsh international weightlifter, liked a post that I put up on Instagram. And for me, that is a massive opportunity. I was like, oh my God, okay, I can message him.
Yeah.
Jordan, will you answer some questions? I want to write an article about the mindset of a weightlifter from Wales. And so like, someone liking something, I can find a way that's an opportunity. That's like 10 hours of work to get it done, put it onto my little WordPress website that I had at the time. And like, so just searching for any opportunity, like reaching out to every coach possible. Can I talk to you on a podcast? Every athlete possible. Can I talk to you? Like, if any manufacturer reached out, which now they reach out all the time and it's like, no. But back then it was like, hell yes. Let me talk to you. Like, let's jump on a call. Like, what can you do? And just scraping and pulling at any tiny little thing I could find to just gain some traction. And I genuinely think like, it's the whole thing of like, you don't notice any like red Chryslers until you want to buy one, and then you start seeing them everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just going through life and it's like, I love the idea of being a weightlifting person, but like, it's just like a cool idea. You don't ever see any opportunities. But if you're like, I need to do that, otherwise my life is going to lack all purpose and all happiness, because that's all I want to do. And literally that's how I felt at the time. I was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to be destined to being miserable and depressed my whole life. You start seeing tiny opportunities that other people would just see as like, what's the point of that? You're going to get almost nothing from it, and it's 10 hours work. Why would you even bother? But it's like, no, that is a foothold. It's not even a foothold. It's like, I could just nestle a bit of my nail into that and like grab on something. And I think that's what it was. I just didn't let go. It was just every opportunity. I would work so hard to create the tiniest bit of benefit for a few weightlifting fans out there. And it just gradually starts to like add on. But it takes so long. It took so long. Yeah.
It almost sounds like there's a need. It's like, because kind of the way I think about it is like opportunity will either present itself or you create it. It's like, oh, this person
Mm.
does this thing, right? This person has this lab. I'll reach out and I'll see if there's an opportunity. Okay, there's an opportunity. Let me see it through. And then you're like, because I need to get experience doing this.
Yeah.
I need to do this, and I had a paper published with Chris, and maybe it's the first of many. I don't know, but the moniker the people scientist, like that would always come up on the podcast. I was like, I need to like publish something. Like I actually
Mm.
need to publish something. So it's like, what fucking wacky, crazy idea would I have? I don't even know how we stumbled upon this, but it's, hey, do personalities differ among elite coaches and regional coaches and national coaches and local coaches? So eventually I reached out to you and it's like, okay, through Weightlifting House, can we push this inventory and have people fill it out? And it's like, okay, we got 160 people, literally from like Olympic, international level to local level, who filled it out. And we have, a sense of their quote unquote personality based on the inventory. Okay, are there any patterns, statistical patterns? That just came from a need. It came from a
Hmm.
need to publish some sort of like scientific writing. And I think even the internship I'm doing, like the way I think about it is like, I need to do this to have the background, like the backing to then support opportunities later on. And I'm
Mm.
sure you probably felt similarly of like the trip to Qatar. I kind of wonder how that was framed, because that wasn't oh, there's a competition, so I can just go and film. That's like, I'm going to do this thing on my own where, um, Ilya and all his boys are there training, and I'm just going to post up in one of the rooms and just film
Yeah.
great content and sit with Ilya. And like, so do you feel like when was it so much that you saw an opportunity, or you kind of like psychologically created one and then manifested
Oh
it?
yeah.
Like, how'd you, what,
Yeah. I think it's just you create opportunities. Like I, in between, I did that World Championships where I just worked so hard. It was crazy. And then a few weeks later, I went to Switzerland, and it was like, do you, I just started chatting with the Liu Xiaojun guy, and then before you know it, it's like there's an opportunity that he might want to do an interview with Western media, and I'm just like, I'll do it, and they're like, but you don't have any questions. They're really weird about it. They're like, you don't have any questions. I was like, yeah, I do. They're like, no, you don't. I was like, yeah, I do. I've got them in my bag. And they were like, okay, well, let's meet soon, and we'll just go through them. And then like I just like sprint to a cafe, write down all these like questions, bring them in, run through them, and they're like, yes, 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 no, no, yes, no, you can't ask that. Can we change this one? And then, waiting around for like hours and hours after the session ended, no idea what was going on. Everyone's gone. I'm just there with like some Liu Xiaojun guy, and then it's like, okay, let's get in the car, and then Shizyong's in the car, and and then when we arrived at the hotel, they were like, stay in the car park, just stay there. And I remember I didn't really have GPS. I didn't have like an iPhone or anything at that point. I didn't really know what was going on. And then I just think a lot of these situations just feel kind of sketchy. Going to Qatar, and then they put me in a room. I remember going to Qatar and I had absolutely no idea what Miso's address was. Like I just didn't know. I hadn't worked it out yet. So I turned up at the hotel at the airport, and I'm just like, I don't know anything about getting data in another country. So, or you guys call it like cellular, maybe? I don't know what it is. Like for your phone to work. So I'm there and I'm like, I'm trying to reach out to Miso, and I can't get through to him. And then eventually he sends me like, it was like El Said or something like that. And I'm just like, is that an address? And so I'm showing like taxi drivers. None of them speak English, obviously. I don't speak Arabic. I'm in a car. We don't know where we're going. It's just like an absolute mess. And I got dropped off in a street. And I'm just like, like really, to be quite honest, like pretty horrible experiences.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm not too proud to say that when I first went to Thailand, when I left you and I flew to Thailand and I landed and I got dropped off in a weird hotel which wasn't where I was supposed to be, I ended up crying that night. Like it was bad. I remember just being my phone didn't work. I couldn't reach out to anyone in the UK to be like, I don't know where I am, and I don't have any money, and I don't know where I'm supposed to be. And I'd been like talking with someone at a hotel desk and basically had convinced them to let me stay in a room, and I had no money to pay for it. So I was in a random hotel, and I remember the bed had wheels on it. So I was just like rolling around in the bedroom, like trying to sit up against a wall and pushing the bed away. And then eventually, I don't quite know how it happened, I managed to get some communication with Charlotte.
Yeah.
And by the time and this is when I was really stressed out and I started like tearing up. I was like, I don't know. It's pitch black. I didn't know where I was. And by the time I woke up the next morning, she had put like, she'd managed to like get me Wi-Fi on my phone. I don't know how she'd done it. But like these situations are actually, I don't want to have to do them again. And I don't have the scrappy need for any of these things to happen anymore to go through it. But at that time, it's almost like you're just willing to do any horrible thing for potentially some upside, because your life has got no like production value yet. Like an hour of my time back then wasn't worth anything to anyone, but like 50 hours of my time working really hard to get one video or one interview was valuable. Like it's just worth it. I could just, I can't do that anymore, but I could then. And so I did go through these kind of horrible times. And in retrospect, they're all really cool stories and really fun. But I remember being absolutely like in an awful place a lot of these times, not enjoying it, and like really stressing out about what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, like how this is going to work. Am I going to be able to? I remember at one point just not being able to afford a flight home, couldn't get back, like these sorts of things. Like it's kind of stressful.
Well, there's a duality to it, and the one thing I'll say is for everyone listening to the podcast, which like riveted by it, you just take an opportunity if you can. If you're in that scrappy stage, like take a freaking opportunity, because I remember I've taken a lot of them, more than the average person, and I've had a lot of incredible experiences because of it. But I remember there was a point in time where you're like, "Hey, do you want to go to Thailand with me?" And I was like, I don't have the money. I can't do it.
Right.
And a lot of that is like, I should have went in the negative in any bank account that I had and made it happen. Like realistically, I should have.
Yeah.
So like in retrospect, that's what I think, because that duality, which is I've had so many experiences that have been so freaking painful and hard, and continue to be. But looking back on them, it's always like, but I'm so fucking glad I've been able to do that. So glad I've been able to experience that. Like I remember, like all these competitions I go to, you fucking lose money. Like I'm not making money from these. So like I'll fly to a Vegas, and I remember, my life felt like it was in shambles because it was out of a long-term relationship. Moving, well, it was before I think it was before I moved to California, and I remember walking around Vegas for hours and hours and hours, just like I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, where's my life going? And looking back, I'm like, it was kind of fun to like walk around Vegas and be super sad the entire time, and have the opportunity to go to Vegas for, say, powerlifting nationals, where my life is kind of like falling apart, then go back to Columbus. Okay, but now I'm moving to California, so I'm going back to Vegas for weightlifting nationals. First time at a national meet, in the back room with Max, like helping him count, helping him get Janus ready. So it's like, and then you were there, and it's like, okay, this is actually pretty fucking cool. And I think back on like the breadth and depth of experiences that have just been like unbelievable and not made sense at all. But a lot of that is in the moment. It's not that shiny object most people think it is. It's just like something is generally hard and painful if it's worth doing, because it contributes to some sort of like professional growth, personal growth. It has more tendrils that kind of reach out. And I found that looking back on it, doing these like reflection episodes of, what have we done, where have we been, what have we learned? It's always with that patina of, that was fucking insane that happened. But I would think about that when we went to see Shauna. We were in that hotel room. There's like blood on there's like blood everywhere, and there's like a mural on the ceiling. And it's like, I don't know why there are like birds painted on the ceiling and like clouds and a blue sky, and there's blood in the bathroom. And I wouldn't get under the covers, and you
slept on top
you were
of the
shirt
bed.
off, like full relax mode. I
don't care about that sort of stuff. Like a little bit of blood. Is it dried? All right, we're good to go. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have this thing that I really like, which is I think maybe I don't know if it's like a actual thing, maybe in psychology. I think it's called like type 1 and type 2 fun or something like that. But like there's fun that you experience whilst you're doing the thing, and then type 2
Yeah.
is you enjoy thinking about it. Like a really difficult 10K is type 2 fun. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
run 10K, it's awful, it's a terrible experience, but afterwards it's awesome, and like thinking back on it, it's great. I used to call it your narrative self. So I used to always think to myself, I'm going to do this for my narrative self. So like lots of things that I don't want to do right now, but in the future, these stories will be great, and future me is going to absolutely love the fact that I did this, even though it's a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing to do. And so loads of these things I think are actually like for your narrative self. Like they're not necessarily that fun in the moment. I mean, even like now, you know, like I've got an 8-week-old baby, and I'm already looking at remembering the first few weeks, and I'm kind of remembering them as being way more fun than they actually were. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I said to like Charlotte, do you remember being, you know, like we'd be up, and I know this will come back round again because babies go up and down in how well they behave or like how well they sleep and stuff. But like, I remember we'd be up all night and we'd just be lying in bed exhausted, and we'd eat an ice cream, and we'd just like, it was just crazy. And now, but at the time, it was not that fun. Actually, it was kind of like, can we just sleep? But you look back on these things as like, that was great. And I think a lot of what you and I are talking about here, with like you going to Vegas, having just been through an awful breakup and all these things, at the time, if I'd have questioned you at any point and said, from 1 to 5, how happy are you? You probably didn't get over a 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now looking back at it, it's like, oh, that's like a top 10 memory going to there and like doing those things. So like your narrative self is so important because that's what you live with. You know, you're thinking back on all these things. So doing them is so worth it. The friction of doing it is tough, but the narrative self will always be grateful.
Yeah. What I think, you know, as a podcaster, as someone who just as a podcaster, as someone who, you know, talks to people quite a bit, you're always kind of searching for those narrative selves that they are able to like recount and talk about and add color to. And you know, you're one of the most interesting people like I've ever talked to. It's like just fascinating every time we chat, and a lot of that is because you seek these experiences out, and it's not just from like a experiential standpoint, but it's from like an intellectual standpoint too. It's like, oh, I want to educate myself on these things because I find them interesting, and I'm curious to know how they integrate into myself or integrate into the self so that I can be a different person. And it's almost, to some extent, it's like making a meal where you have a bunch of ingredients. You're like, I don't know how it's going to come together, but it's a never ending meal. It's almost like you put it in a dish, you taste it, you put it in a dish, you taste it, and it's just constantly kind of remodeling itself. And it, you know, there was a question. So I went in and met with one of the coaches yesterday morning for like 45 minutes. And we were talking about just like creating relationships with athletes. And he said that he asks, you know, a handful of questions to try and understand them or learn more about them. And one is, what is the hardest thing you've ever done? And he said, generally, when you ask that, like you learn a lot about a person. And you talk about having a bunch of these challenging experiences. And I know I've had them, like thinking about when I was in California, I reached out to the strength coach at Cal Berkeley. And I was like, hey, can I come in and shadow and learn more about S&C, because I'm moving across the country to be a strength coach. And I don't even know what that is. I don't know what a strength coach is. Never seen it, never done it, never been a part of it, never really talked to people who do it. And he's like, sure. So I like walk into, you know, one of the biggest programs in the US, walk into their weight room. And he's like, yeah, go on the floor and yeah, hang out. So I'm on the floor with like maybe the offense was then. It's like 50 fucking guys who are D1 athletes who like everybody there, they either get paid a lot of money, there's a lot of prestige, and there's a lot of expectations riding on it. And I'm just like in sweats and a fucking like Bill Murray hoodie and like New Balances. I don't know what's going on. And that was a really jarring experience to try and figure it out. And it didn't go well. Like it did not go well at all. But turn around into, you know, 3 years later, and now it's interning with another program and being a responsible like you know, a responsible person who can actually do what they need to do and contribute. So I pose that question to you. What's the hardest thing you've either gone through or chosen to do? And maybe we can say like, how's that actually shaped you?
Um, I think so. I'll go from like as an adult. I think is probably the best way to tackle it.
Mm.
I think there are two, and maybe it's the most obvious things. Like, I this sounds like almost like I'm trying to. I promise I'm not trying to make this sound harder than it was, but building weightlifting house was so difficult for me. Some people would have found it significantly more easy because they know how to. They can just do these sorts of things better. For me, I'm not. I'm just not. I don't know. Like I found it extremely tough. Like the psychological stress of it, of like, are we going to make it? Can we afford to pay salaries? Can we afford to bring someone else on? Should we try this new venture? Should we spend the money to fly out there? Like you have a few days, you know, back in the day, you could go a day where you basically don't make any money. A week could go by and you're like, we are really screwed. A month could go by and it's like, we can't afford to pay people, but we have to. So where are we going to get the money from? Do we need to find some type of funding? Like how, like, are we just putting in all this work and it's just absolutely not going to work? And there were definitely a few years that I found really like dark, and you know, there was definitely a period where I was not mentally in a great place. I found that very, very challenging, like for a while, building it all out. And then that bled over into all other areas of my life, which wasn't very fun. But like, I feel like we've come out of it to the point now where I don't have those stresses. I don't have those like massively down periods anymore because we're kind of through into the light. Like things now tend to work. It's now more like how well can we do rather than like, are we going to survive this? And then probably the one that's the most significant is honestly just, and maybe this isn't very interesting to hear about because it's got nothing to do with weightlifting, but I think my and my wife's relationship, working on that was probably the hardest thing we've ever done because we had like an initial huge amount of chemistry and enjoyment with each other, but we were very different people. Like, I'm not an organized person. I'm very like lateral thinking. One idea makes me think of 50 other ideas. I'm not putting things in the right place. I don't revise. I don't really follow any rules that anyone ever gives me. I was kind of naughty. She is like straight A's. Everything is labeled. Everything is in the right place. Follows the rules. Like just completely different personalities. And I mean, there was one particular point where after like several years together, it was like, okay, this is it. This is it. This is over. I was like, I got to move out. And she was like, okay, you know, we were really upset about it, but it was like, this is just how it is. Like she was going to help me find an apartment to move to. So then I would say like the work for the following maybe like 3 or so years that went into us being like, no, let's fix this. And realizing that like you both have to change so much to make it work. For me, for both of us, we've both said it was like the hardest thing we've done. Like she having to change her personality and me having to change my personality and move in towards each other a little bit towards that middle line. Like I'm still those things and she's still those things, but we're less of them. And we are totally appreciative that the other way of doing things is not the wrong way. It's just a different way. But like integrating 2 very different types of personalities into one life was extremely challenging for us. And again, for a lot of people, it's not that difficult. A lot of times people are with other people who are very similar or not too different. But I think we're about as different as you can get in terms of our like temperaments. I have no aversion to risk. She has lots of aversion to risk, like all these sorts of things. Like you said, I'll jump in a bed that's got blood on it and I'm just not bothered. She will like, you know, she's not doing that.
Yeah.
She's not doing that. So like, just very challenging, but getting through that, I think those two things, you know, side by side. Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, and I think one point for people to kind of latch onto and um, is the fact that it always sounds so casual and so just offhand. You said 3 years, and this is and that's the
Yeah, yeah,
deceiving thing
yeah,
about a podcast, right? Is it's like, oh, I'm going to listen to a 55-minute episode where Josh and Seb talk about the really difficult things they've done, really cool things they've done. And it's like, yeah, but we started this episode, started with September 2019. That was just 6 years ago, right?
yeah.
Like, what's happened since then? It's like so fucking much. And it's not that other people don't experience those life changes and the basically like that decision tree of should I do this or should I not, and then what branch that leads to. But it's the realization that a lot of these aspects like span so much time, and what that means is like you're just gonna live with that feeling, that situation, and be embedded in it for a very long time before it changes. And kind of hearing you talk about that, I could totally see that with weightlifting house. Like I could totally see how hard that was. I mean, because either not knowing where money's coming from or having a very short supply of it, and then not also not having a map, and it's like exploring territory for the first time. you it's not that you have to be okay with failure. It's like you have to be okay. You just have to not make a decision to avoid that feeling, because you're going to experience it often and in large amounts, right? So it's
Hmm.
like you're just going to feel failure for a very long time, and that's just going to be such a deep sense of who you are, right? That's going to be such
Mm.
a deep embodiment. So that was a really interesting one. I'm glad you mentioned that. And then your own personal relationship, like it's got to be so hard. Um,
But everyone, I mean, that one I don't think is at all unique to me. I think everybody in a relationship has to.
like at some point go through that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless they want to just argue for the rest of their lives, which I guess some people do,
I mean,
and
people
whatever. But like,
do.
yeah, we had no interest in having a life like that, so it was just something we had to do,
Yeah.
and plenty of people do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think plenty of people do, plenty of people probably don't. I
yeah,
I think
maybe,
I
yeah.
think I think you're unique in the fact that you decided to make that happen and develop um committed deep relationship off the back
Mm.
end of that. And so I'll say, like, to everyone who's listening, kind of as a point of reflection, even as I ask you that, I think about, okay, for myself, when I start asking other people that, because I will eventually ask athletes that, and just people who I know, because that gives you some access into what's really shaped them as a person. One, I hear you talk about, and it's like your ability to withstand those failure points, like all the success you've had. It's like, oh man, that's really changed who you are, or it's the expression of who you are, like in its purest form. So I think as people listen to this episode, maybe reflect on that. What's the hardest thing I've experienced? Like either self-imposed or not. And maybe those are two questions. Like, what's the hardest thing I've put myself through, and what's the hardest thing I've just had to face by nature of existing,
Mm.
and what shaped me as a person, and then communicating that to people. Like, hey, this is something I've gone through. This is why I am the way I am, and I think that helps bring a lot of clarity to like interpersonal relationships. And the coach I got this question from, he even mentioned that he's like, hey, all these kids have different backgrounds than we do, and that's going to shape who they are. And maybe you don't realize that, maybe you don't think about it, but that has to be acknowledged at some point. Of everyone's got a different story, and one, what shapes the story, and then how they talk about it is really impacted by it.
Yeah, definitely. I think also it's interesting that when I heard that question, I definitely just picked two things that I actively chose to do that were difficult,
Yeah.
rather than things that happened to me that I had no. A lot of people like, someone in your family dies, or there are all these sorts of things, and that would be the thing that they would say was the most difficult. And so, to some degree, it does go to show that I've been very lucky in many ways. It's not that there haven't been things outside of difficulty that I've chosen that have been hard, but that's kind of where I go to. It's like the choices I've made that have been difficult to get through, rather than, oh, this thing happened to me or that thing happened or whatever. Which I think a lot of people would like. I mean, would you like to answer this question?
I mean, we have like, I'd call it like 4 or 5 minutes to like wrap up.
I mean, I can run over a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would. So I do have one question. I don't want to lose it. So I'll ask you really quickly, and we can kind of turn the tables. I always love coming back to like takeaways, big picture message, something that can support people who do listen to the podcast. Because people listen to this, and I know what I was thinking when I would listen to, say, Glenn talk about his coaching journey, is how can I either shape it to be more like that or learn something from his own experiences. And his experiences were, he got a master's degree, it was in Texas, coached a bunch of kids, then started moving around, eventually got to Cal Strength, okay, and then eventually got to MDUSA. And it's like, what did he do along the way? What challenges did he face? What did he learn? Most people I don't know if most people listening to this know who Glenn was, but he was also like a long haul, I don't know if he was long haul, but he was like a truck driver, for a really long time. And he would just talk about having those like grip trainers and just like driving truck. And I just like, that stuff's so fascinating to me. So from your experience, that long stretch of building Weightlifting House to the point where it's sustainable, and we'll call it healthy, right? Predictable, supportive, all those great things. What's one thing that sticks out as a takeaway that you would love to tell people that would help support them in their own personal development journey, professional development journey?
I mean, in terms of the personal, I don't think it's logical to have necessarily done everything that I did. Like, to some degree, I wouldn't recommend it because I didn't need much money to live off, which was great. I have no real aversion to risk. And I was continuing to try something that wasn't really working for a long time. It's not necessarily the right thing. It's not necessarily a good path to go down. But what I will say is, if you do try, there is, trying to give one thing is kind of just insane. But the thing that I'm most appreciative now of is having other people who are really good at what they do. And that doesn't even need to mean that they are like professionals at this stuff. Like, when I first hired Nick, he was hired to do something totally different from what he does now. But he's just, he was a hard worker. He's got an aptitude for it, and now he's great at what he does. But like, he came on board to try and help reach out to gyms to sell barbells and plates to. That was his job role. Business development manager, we called it, which is like the most pretentious title for a company that at the time only had 2 and then 3 people when he came on board. Now he talks to manufacturers and helps design clothing and plan accessory, like develop accessories and reach out to athletes and all these sorts of things. When Cody came on board and she was like just going to pick and pack products and ship them out, and now she like builds a website and like does email, but like both of these guys walked away from the universities getting firsts, which maybe you don't have in the USA, but like they were like the top thing. Wow. So like they had really high attributes. They could clearly learn to do almost anything, and just letting them figure out what it was that they wanted to do.
Wow.
And now we bring on people who are, they've learned how to do clothing design, so we bring that person on, or they've trained in how to film or edit or whatever, and that's what they're coming to do. We're not no longer bringing people on and letting them figure it out. Like, we can't. But they always, like, I used to always hear people saying, if you only ever hire people who you teach, you're going to be always limited by everything that you know. You have to start bringing in people who have outside abilities and expertise and knowledge. And I will say that is the most valuable thing. Like, it genuinely is the team that you build around you is the most valuable thing. It's not you. Like, you have to, you might always be like the key person and the most valuable person or whatever, but the people that you bring in around you are literally going to be the people who build the thing and make the thing run. So in terms of like, if I had to give like some, corny businessy thing, it would definitely be bring on the right people, and you have to get on with them. Like, we just have a laugh. Like, we have so much fun. Like, you've got to get on with them. They've got to be fun, and they've got to have knowledge and expertise, and all these sorts of things. So, but that's not a piece of advice I would have been able to give at any other point, because it was just about just grind, don't stop, keep going, work hard, don't think about it, keep pushing. Like that's like 90% of the journey, and then at the end it's like, oh, by the way, make sure you get the right people. But that's just because that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to your abilities as someone who's just resourceful, works hard, learns a lot, to then be able to support a staff, to be able to build out some sort of frame for people like operating underneath, or not underneath, but like with, right, to have a team and to create this thing that kind of moves as its own thing and not as you, right? Let's do this. We'll do a part 2 episode, and we'll
sounds good.
We'll reverse the tables. So for people listening, I mean, obviously everyone who is listening would love to support Weightlifting House, and it's obvious where they can go, but per typical show, typical process for a show, where can they go to find everything that you guys provide and put out?
Well, as you said, everybody knows, because it's just Weightlifting House everywhere. But I will say, a lot of people who listen to the podcast are old-time listeners, and they would have tried like our old belts and our old straps and those sorts of things. I implore you to check out our clothing, and our new accessories as well. The quality is actually unbelievable. You can't get better clothing. Now like our belts and our sleeves and our wraps and everything, also just absolutely unbelievable. You can't get better. I would highly recommend you try them out. Next time, like, your straps break, or next time your knee sleeves break, or your belt, or you need a new training t-shirt or some leggings, I promise you it will be worth it. We turned on our reviews, the ability to leave a review, back in February or March of this year. And I think we've already got over 1,100 5-star reviews since then.
Yeah.
I promise you it's worth it. It's the best stuff. So I would say just go and read some reviews, and then let that motivate you.
Yeah.
And then just so you know, that money doesn't come into my pockets. We put it all back into like traveling to competitions and filming and bringing in more people to do more documentaries. So I promise you that it's this is not to make me rich, as much as I would like that to be the case one day. That is not what is so far happening. This is all going back into trying to make weightlifting more popular.
And there's obviously all the other offerings, and and people. I think people listening, the core group of weightlifting, powerlifting, sports science, strength and conditioning professionals who love listening to this podcast would also love to make you rich. So go to Weightlifting House, buy as many products as you can. Everything they offer, just check it out, give it a shot. You can use the code PHIL WL at checkout. That's PHILWL to save 10%. I get 10%. It helps me every month. I get super excited to see a few $100 deposited in my account.
I think it's going up at the moment.
As
in like the usage of your code.
It's going well.
Whatever's
happening, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, multiple times a day I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
It's giving me flashbacks to when I used to have a virus code, and 1 month I remember turning it, like going on, I was like, oh my God, I just made it. Like, I think I made like $1,000 1 month.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy crap, this is insane.
Yeah.
And that was like a 1 month thing, and then it went down, and then like within a few months it was like $2. But still, there was 1 month where it went mad.
It's funny because you say that, and I remember I was in Tucson, Arizona for finals, and I was like going broke, which is like a common thing happening nowadays.
Sure.
And I remember I had like $700 deposited in my account from Weightlifting House, and that fucking saved me. And I was like,
nice.
I'm so grateful that this happened. Like, what perfect timing. That always seems how it works out. So if people are interested, you could support myself, you could support Weightlifting House. If you're interested in coaching, continuing education, just reaching out and chatting, you can follow me at Philosophical Weightlifting, Josh_Phil WL. Check out the website, philosophicalweightlifting.com, for all of my offerings. Hopefully upgraded soon. Thank you again for listening to another fantastic episode of the podcast, and we will catch you all next time.